Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It is quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let us get back to our main character. It was one of those stormy nights when New York seemed to swallow its own light. Rain poured down the glass towers, turning every reflection into a blur. Inside a small diner near Midtown, Maya Brooks wiped the last table of her double shift. Her sneakers were soaked, her hands raw from detergent, and the tip jar barely covered her bus fare. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky like an argument between gods. She checked her cracked phone screen past midnight. The subway line had closed early again. With a tired sigh, she opened her rideshare app. A black sedan pulled up to the curb almost instantly. She rushed out, clutching her tote bag, head ducked under her thin jacket. The driver barely looked up when she opened the door and slid into the back seat. "Thank you for coming so fast," she said breathlessly, shaking rain from her hair. Silence. Only the hum of the engine and the faint scent of leather. She looked up. A man sat beside her, not the driver. He was in the passenger seat, staring at his phone. The glow from the screen caught his face. Sharp jawline, dark eyes, suit perfectly tailored. He looked nothing like a rideshare passenger. Maya blinked. "Oh, sorry, I thought—" He finally looked at her, calm but curious. "You thought this was your ride?" His voice was low, steady, almost amused. Yes, I am sorry. I must have gotten into the wrong car." Oh, before she could reach for the handle, the driver pulled into traffic. Rain blurred the city lights outside as panic fluttered in her chest. "It is all right," the man said, eyes still on his phone. "Where are you heading?" Just uptown, but really, I can get out at the next corner." "Too late now," he said quietly. "The streets are flooded. Let me drop you off." She studied him for a second, uncertain. There was something intimidating yet strangely kind in the way he spoke. He wore no smile, but his tone lacked the arrogance she expected from someone in a suit that expensive. The car glided past Times Square, lights reflecting off his face. He glanced at her. "You look like you had a long night." She gave a small laugh. "You could say that. 2 jobs, 1 dream, 0 sleep." That made him pause. "What dream?" "To open an art studio one day. For kids who cannot afford lessons," she said softly. A flash of surprise crossed his eyes, followed by something gentler. He nodded once, as if memorizing her words. The car stopped in front of a worn-out apartment building. Maya fumbled for her wallet. "Thank you, really. I did not mean to—" He handed her his jacket instead. "You will freeze before you make it upstairs." She hesitated, feeling its warmth, the faint scent of cedar and rain. Before she could protest, he added, "Keep it. Consider it a loan." And she nodded shyly, stepped out into the rain, and the car disappeared down the street. Only then did she notice the initials embroidered inside the jacket collar. AC. That night, as she hung the jacket on a chair, she whispered to herself, "Who are you, Mr. AC?" Across the city, in a penthouse high above the storm, Adrian Cole removed his cufflinks and stared at the empty glass in his hand. He had not planned to let that stranger stay in the car, but something in her voice, unpolished, honest, had pulled him out of the monotony of his perfect world. He leaned back against the leather chair, watching the lightning flash beyond the window. For the first time in years, he caught himself smiling. He had no idea that the girl who entered his car by mistake would soon enter his life the same way by accident and forever. The next morning, sunlight slipped through the cracks of Maya's window blinds, cutting lines of gold across her small apartment. The city was already alive outside, horns echoing, footsteps rushing past. She sat on the edge of her narrow bed, still holding the gray jacket that did not belong to her. The initials stitched inside AC seemed to stare back like a secret waiting to be solved. Her phone buzzed with a text from her landlord. "Rent is 3 days overdue. If not paid today, the room goes to someone else." Maya's chest tightened. She had $47 to her name and a brother in community college counting on her. She folded the jacket carefully, slipped it into her tote bag, and whispered, "Time to find its owner." At the reception desk of Cole Holdings, the marble floors gleamed like water. Men and women in suits moved with precision, their badges catching the light. Maya felt painfully out of place in her faded denim jacket and worn sneakers. "Excuse me," she said to the front desk clerk. "I need to return something that belongs to Mr. Adrian Cole." The woman's smile froze at the name. "Do you have an appointment?" "No, but—" Before Maya could explain, a deep voice cut through the air. "Let her through." Adrian stood near the elevator, tall and poised in a charcoal suit. His eyes softened the moment they met hers. "You found me," he said quietly. "Actually," she replied, holding out the jacket, "I am just returning this. I did not mean to cause trouble." He took the jacket but did not move to end the conversation. Instead, he studied her, the same way one studies a painting they cannot forget. "Do you have a minute? I could use your help with something." Maya hesitated, glancing toward the glass doors. "Help? Me?" Adrian nodded once, almost to himself. "You seem honest, and I need someone exactly like that." "Oh." Moments later, she found herself sitting across from him in his office. The view stretched across the skyline, the city buzzing below like a mechanical heart. He poured coffee into 2 porcelain cups, then spoke with the calm precision of a man used to getting what he wanted. "My company is hosting a charity gala next week," he began. "Investors expect me to bring a fiancée. It keeps certain rumors quiet." Maya frowned. "You are asking me to pretend to be your fiancée?" "I am offering you a contract," Adrian said evenly. 30 days. Attend a few events. Play the part. You will be compensated enough to cover your rent for a year, maybe more." Her heart pounded. "You barely know me. Why would you trust a stranger with something like that?" He leaned back, a hint of a smile ghosting his lips. "Because you are not like everyone else who walks into this building. You looked at me last night like I was just a man in a car, not a name, not a bank account." Maya swallowed hard. "This is insane." "Maybe," he said softly, "but it is honest. No lies, no hidden agenda. You help me, and I help you." She stared at the crisp papers on his desk. Contract of engagement. Every line screamed impossible, but so did her empty wallet. "What are the rules?" she asked finally. Adrian's expression stayed composed. "Simple. You attend public events with me. No one must suspect it is an arrangement. We keep it professional. No personal entanglements." Her eyebrows lifted. "You mean no falling in love?" He met her eyes, unflinching. "Exactly." The air between them thickened, charged with something neither of them wanted to name. Maya looked down at the signature line, pen trembling slightly in her hand. "If I say yes," she said, "you promise this does not hurt anyone?" "You have my word." She signed. The pen scratched softly across the page, an ordinary sound that somehow sealed something much bigger than both of them. Adrian extended his hand. "Welcome to the arrangement, Miss Brooks." She shook it, her fingers small against his. "Just Maya," she said quietly. He nodded. "Just Adrian, then." As she left the building, the cold wind of the city rushed against her face. The paper contract inside her bag felt heavier than gold. She had walked into the richest tower in New York as a waitress, and walked out as the fake fiancée of a millionaire. Somewhere high above, Adrian watched from the window, the faintest smile on his lips. He had told himself this was a business decision, nothing more. Yet as he watched her disappear into the crowd, he wondered why it already felt personal. By the end of the week, Maya had entered a world she never believed she would see up close. Adrian's assistant, Claire, guided her through everything from how to walk in heels to how to hold a wine glass as if it were part of her hand. The penthouse guest room had been turned into a temporary wardrobe. Racks of designer dresses lined up like silent judges. Each morning began with the same routine. Claire would hand her a new outfit, hair and makeup artists would fuss over her, and Adrian would review the day's events with a tone that was all business. Yet between the formal words and the measured distance, there were moments that felt unguarded, like when he poured her coffee without asking, or when she caught him watching her reflection in the elevator glass. During one lesson, Claire reminded her, "No slouching, shoulders back, smile as if you have nothing to prove." Maya gave a nervous laugh. "That is easy for people who actually belong here." Adrian, standing by the window, looked over. "Then let them believe you do." Ugh. That night, they attended their first event together, a small cocktail reception for corporate partners at the Cole Foundation. The room shimmered with chandeliers, laughter, and expensive perfume. Maya's emerald dress caught the light as she entered on Adrian's arm. The buzz of conversation shifted when people turned to look. "She is stunning," someone whispered. "Who is she?" another asked. Maya's heart pounded, but she held her head high, remembering Claire's words. Adrian's grip on her hand was firm, grounding. An older woman approached them with a smile too sharp to be kind. "Adrian, dear, you have been hiding this lovely fiancé from us." Adrian's expression did not waver. "We prefer to keep our lives private, Mrs. Langford." The woman turned to Maya, eyes scanning her like an appraisal. "And where did you two meet?" Maya's throat tightened, but before she could answer, Adrian said smoothly, "At an art gallery. She paints." It was half true. Maya blinked, surprised, but followed his lead. "Yes," she added, "though my masterpieces mostly hang in my kitchen." Laughter rippled around them. Even Mrs. Langford smiled thinly before walking away. When the crowd thinned, Maya let out the breath she had been holding. "An art gallery?" Adrian's mouth curved faintly. "It suits you better than saying you spilled coffee on me in a car." For the first time, she saw warmth behind the calm exterior. "You are not as serious as you pretend to be," she said. He glanced at her. "Do not tell anyone. It would ruin my reputation." Hours later, back in the car, the city lights blurred past the window. Maya leaned her head against the seat, exhaustion softening her voice. "You know, I expected this to feel fake." "And now?" Adrian asked. "It feels strange, like I am borrowing someone else's life." He looked at her then, really looked. "Maybe it is time someone borrowed something from you for a change." She turned to him, puzzled, but he only faced forward again, the hint of a smile playing on his lips. When the car stopped at her building, he stepped out first and opened her door, his hand extended. "Good work tonight, Maya." She took his hand, the touch brief but steady. "Good night, Adrian." As the car drove away, she stood in the glow of the streetlight, her heart unsteady. Somewhere between rehearsal and reality, the lines of their contract had started to blur. The next few weeks passed in a rhythm that neither of them had expected. By day, Maya played the part of the poised fiancée, smiling for photographs and memorizing names of people she had never met. By night, when the events were over and the city quieted, Adrian would drive her back himself. Those late drives became the only time they were just two people, not a billionaire and a waitress dressed in borrowed silk. One evening, rain returned to New York, gentle this time, tapping against the glass walls of Adrian's penthouse. Maya sat by the window, sketchbook in her lap, waiting for him to finish a call with his board of directors. She had been told to stay the night since an early morning meeting awaited them both. When he finally entered the room, his tie loosened and his voice low, he looked more human than she had ever seen him. "Long day?" she asked softly. He nodded, sitting across from her. "I forget what silence sounds like until you are here." She smiled faintly and flipped her sketchbook around. A drawing of the city skyline filled the page, but she had drawn the lights softer, almost warm. "You make this look peaceful," he said. "Because I drew it from up here," she answered. "It is easier to find beauty when you are above the noise." For a moment, neither spoke. The hum of the rain filled the space between them. Adrian looked at her carefully. "Do you ever miss home?" Maya shrugged. "Home is just wherever my brother calls to tell me he passed another exam. That is enough." He leaned forward. "You raised him?" "Since our mother passed," she said, her voice steady but quiet. "I promised her I would keep him in school. That is why I took every job I could find." Adrian's jaw tightened, as if her words had touched something familiar. "My father built everything I have now, but he died before he could see it finished. I thought success would make the silence smaller. It did not." Their eyes met, two people from opposite worlds realizing they shared the same kind of loneliness. He rose and poured her a cup of tea, the steam curling between them. "You are not what I expected, Maya Brooks." She laughed lightly. "You mean I talk too much?" "No," he said, almost smiling. "I mean you make this arrangement feel real." She looked away, her cheeks warm. "You said no personal entanglements." "I remember," he murmured, setting the cup down. "But rules are easier to write than to keep." The rain grew heavier outside, streaking the glass with silver trails. Maya closed her sketchbook, trying to steady her breath. "Tomorrow is the foundation gala," she said, changing the subject. He nodded. "It is the biggest event of the year. You will be perfect. I will try not to embarrass you." "You could never," he said quietly. Later that night, as she prepared to leave the room, he stopped her at the doorway. "Maya," he said, voice low, almost hesitant. "If anyone at the gala tries to make you feel less than you are, remember this: no one in that room has more right to be there than you." She met his gaze, and for the first time, she believed him. That night, sleep refused to come. As thunder rolled over the city, Maya realized that somewhere along the way, her heart had stopped following the contract and started following him. The night of the gala arrived like a storm dressed in diamonds. Limousines lined the marble entrance of the Metropolitan Hall, and flashes from camera lights painted the evening in white bursts. Inside, the city's elite gathered beneath crystal chandeliers, their laughter polished, their smiles rehearsed. Maya stepped out of the car, her hand trembling slightly as Adrian offered his arm. Her gown shimmered in soft silver, the color of moonlight on calm water. "You will be fine," Adrian whispered. "Just breathe." "I am trying," she said, exhaling slowly. "It feels like walking into another universe." "Then let us make it ours for one night," he replied, his tone low but steady. They entered the ballroom together, and heads turned instantly. Photographers murmured, flashes flickered, and whispers followed like a tide. Maya could feel eyes measuring every inch of her, searching for the flaw that would reveal she did not belong. But Adrian's presence beside her anchored her. The chairman of Cole Holdings, Mr. Warren Langford, raised his glass from across the room and called out, "Adrian, finally decided to show the world your mystery fiancé, have you?" Adrian's smile was polite, but cool. "Good evening, Warren." Langford's wife, the same Mrs. Langford who had questioned Maya before, joined in. "Such a charming surprise. And where did you two say you met again?" Maya's pulse quickened. The words she had practiced scattered in her mind, but before she could answer, Adrian spoke evenly. "Fate introduced us, Mrs. Langford, and I would say it did a fine job." A few guests chuckled softly, but the woman's eyes narrowed. "How romantic," she said with a note of mockery. "Do tell us, Miss Brooks, how does it feel to be the future Mrs. Cole? It must be quite the upgrade." Maya held her breath for half a second, then smiled gently. "It feels like any other day when you are beside someone who treats you with respect. The difference is not money, Mrs. Langford. It is kindness." The air around the table shifted. Several guests exchanged glances, some surprised, others impressed. Adrian's eyes softened with quiet pride. As the evening went on, Maya moved gracefully through the crowd. She greeted donors, thanked artists, and even made a few people laugh. But the real test came when a reporter approached with a microphone and a smile too eager. "Miss Brooks," the reporter asked, "many say this engagement happened overnight. Some wonder if it is real love or a business arrangement. What do you say to that?" Maya froze for a heartbeat. Adrian's hand brushed hers under the table, a silent reassurance. She looked straight into the camera and said clearly, "People believe what they want, but real love is not built on what others think. It begins with honesty, and that is all I can promise." The reporter blinked, momentarily speechless. The crowd broke into scattered applause. When the cameras finally moved on, Adrian leaned close and whispered, "You handled that perfectly." She exhaled shakily. "I almost fainted." "You did not. You were magnificent." Ugh. Later, as the orchestra played a slow melody, he offered his hand. "Dance with me." She hesitated. "In front of everyone?" "In front of everyone," he said. "They might as well see what they cannot buy." She placed her hand in his, and they stepped onto the floor. The music wrapped around them, gentle and slow. For a brief, impossible moment, the noise of the world faded. It was just Maya and Adrian, no contract, no crowd, only the quiet rhythm of two hearts pretending not to fall. But somewhere deep down, neither of them was pretending anymore. The gala ended long after midnight. The rain had stopped, leaving the streets shining under the glow of street lamps. Adrian's driver opened the car door, but for once, he did not get in. He looked at Maya and said quietly, "Let us walk." She hesitated, glancing at her heels. "Walk? In this dress?" He smiled faintly. "You survived a ballroom full of sharks. I think you can handle Fifth Avenue." "Oh." They walked side by side through the quiet city. The air smelled of rain and perfume. Maya held her shoes in one hand, the hem of her gown brushing the pavement. For the first time all night, she felt free. "Everyone looked at me like I did not belong," she said softly, "and for a while, I almost believed them." Adrian slowed his pace. "You belonged more than anyone in that room. They just could not see it." His words settled over her like warmth against the cold. "Do you really believe that?" she asked. "I would not have said it otherwise," he replied. "Maya, when you walked in tonight, the room changed. You did not try to be someone else. You were just you." and that was enough. They stopped beneath the awning of a closed cafe. The city's reflection glimmered in puddles at their feet. She met his gaze, her heart beating too fast for calm conversation. "You keep saying things like that," she whispered, "and it makes me forget this is all an act." He took a slow breath. "Maybe I forget that too." For a long moment, neither moved. The space between them felt fragile, suspended between truth and fear. Then Adrian reached into his pocket and pulled out a small object, her pencil, the one she always carried in her sketchbook. "You dropped this at the Gala," he said, offering it to her. "You should keep it. It reminds you who you are." Maya took it, her fingers brushing his. "And what reminds you who you are, Adrian?" He looked away toward the skyline. "That is the problem. I spent years becoming the man people wanted me to be. Sometimes I wonder if there is anything left of the one I used to be." She studied him quietly. "Maybe that is why we met," she said. "So you could remember." The silence that followed was not awkward. It was full of something neither could name. A siren wailed faintly in the distance, and the city kept breathing around them. Adrian turned back to her. "You asked me once why I trusted you. It is because you do not need anything from me. Everyone else sees what I have. You see what I lack." Her eyes softened. "Maybe that is because I know what it feels like to have nothing." Rain began again, gentle this time, a soft drizzle that blurred the lights. Adrian took off his jacket and draped it over her shoulders. "I think that is the second time you have given me this," she said, smiling through the rain. "Maybe it will not be the last," he replied. They stood there, two silhouettes under the glow of a streetlight, as if the world had paused to listen. Then he stepped closer, his voice barely above the sound of the rain. "If this were not a contract," he asked, "would you still be here?" She looked up at him, her eyes shining. "If this were not a contract," she said slowly, "I think I would have never wanted to leave." The car horn echoed from the corner, breaking the moment. He straightened, slipping his hands into his pockets. "Come on," he said softly. "Let us go home." But as they walked back to the car, both of them knew that the line between act and reality had already disappeared. What began as an arrangement was now something far more dangerous and far more real. The following morning, sunlight filled the penthouse, but the warmth did not reach Adrian's face. He stood by the window, a newspaper in his hand, his expression unreadable. Across the front page, in bold letters, it read, "CEO Adrian Cole's engagement, a lie insider reveals contract with waitress turned fiancée." Maya's voice broke the silence. "Adrian, what is that?" He turned slowly, eyes heavy with guilt. "It is what it looks like." She stepped closer, heart racing. Who would write something like this? Who even knew about the contract? "Someone inside the company," he said quietly. "Probably Langford. He has been waiting for a chance to destroy me." Ugh. Maya stared at him, the words blurring in her mind. "So it is true. It was always just a contract. Now everyone knows." Adrian reached out instinctively. "Maya, listen to me. I will fix this." "Fix what?" she whispered. "The story, or the fact that it is true?" He froze. There was no answer that would not wound her. "I told you from the start," he said finally. "This was business." Her eyes filled with tears, but her voice stayed steady. "You also told me no one in that room had more right to be there than me. Was that business too?" He took a step closer, but she backed away. "Maya, no," she said, shaking her head. "Do not say my name like that. You used me, Adrian. You promised no one would get hurt. But look at me. I am humiliated. You made me believe this was real." His jaw tightened, regret flickering in his eyes. "It was real," he said softly. "At least to me." Ugh. She stared at him for a long moment, her heart breaking with every breath. "Then you should have said that before it became a headline." Without another word, she grabbed her coat and walked toward the elevator. The door closed behind her with a final echoing chime that sounded too much like goodbye. Adrian remained still, the paper trembling in his hands. Claire entered the room, her face pale. "The board has called an emergency meeting," she said. "They are questioning your integrity. Langford is pushing for your resignation." Adrian nodded, his voice flat. "Tell them I will be there." When Claire left, he sank into the nearest chair, the silence deafening. His empire, his name, even his position, none of it mattered. The only thing he wanted to protect had already walked away. Meanwhile, Maya found herself back in her small apartment, The place that once felt like home, now empty and cold. She stared at her sketchbook on the table, the one he had returned to her after the gala. She opened it slowly, hoping for comfort, but instead found a note tucked between the pages. It was in his handwriting. "You taught me what honesty looks like. I only wish I had learned sooner." Tears slipped down her cheeks. She closed the book and whispered into the quiet room, "Then why did you let me go?" Outside, rain began to fall again, steady and cold, as if the city itself shared her sorrow. Across town, Adrian stood in front of the boardroom windows, his reflection fractured by the glass. Reporters waited outside. Investors demanded explanations, and every word in the headlines reminded him of what he had lost. For the first time in his life, the man who had everything realized he had nothing, not without her. But somewhere deep inside, beneath the anger and the noise, one thought refused to leave him. He would find a way to make it right no matter what it cost. Days passed, and the scandal spread like wildfire. Adrian's name filled the news cycle, and every station replayed the same story, how a billionaire CEO had faked an engagement to protect his company. He attended the board meeting in silence, allowing the accusations to pour over him like rain he no longer tried to avoid. When it was over, he signed a letter of temporary resignation and handed it to the board chairman. "If stepping down restores trust," he said calmly, "then I will step down." Outside, cameras flashed as he walked through the lobby. For once, he did not look at the reporters or the headlines. His thoughts were somewhere else, back to the quiet moments in the penthouse, the laughter at the gala, the girl who painted the city softer than it really was. Meanwhile, Maya tried to return to her old life. She took extra shifts at the diner, kept her head down, and pretended the whispers did not reach her. But they did. Customers recognized her face from the tabloids. Some offered sympathy, others curiosity, but all of it felt heavy. One evening, she found herself walking by the old art gallery where she used to stop after work. A new banner hung above the door: "The Art of Truth," a charity exhibition curated by Adrian Cole. Her heart stopped. She hesitated on the sidewalk as people filed inside, unaware of the storm still brewing in her chest. Slowly, she stepped through the doors. The gallery glowed with soft light, the walls lined with paintings and sketches all hers. Every drawing from her old sketchbook had been restored, framed, and displayed. Each piece bore a small note underneath: "Artist, Maya Brooks, property of the Cole Foundation, with gratitude for her honesty and courage." A murmur spread through the crowd as Adrian stepped onto the small stage at the center of the room. The press had gathered again, expecting another corporate speech. But he looked nothing like a man defending his empire. He looked like a man who had finally stopped pretending. "Good evening," he began, his voice steady but low. "A few weeks ago, the world learned a story about me. They called it a scandal, but the truth is far simpler. I made a mistake. I created a contract to protect my company, and in doing so, I hurt the only person who ever showed me what integrity really means." Cameras clicked, flashes lighting up his face, but he did not flinch. His eyes scanned the crowd until they found her standing near the back. "Maya Brooks," he said clearly, "if you are here tonight, know this: no part of what I feel for you was a lie. The contract ended, but what you gave me will last the rest of my life." A hush fell over the room. He continued, his voice breaking slightly. "You once told me that art lets people see the truth beneath the surface. These paintings are my apology. Every piece here belongs to you. Every person in this room is here because of you, and I am here because I cannot imagine this world without you in it." The crowd began to applaud, but Maya did not move. Tears filled her eyes as she looked around the gallery, the sketches that once hid in her drawer now glowing under the light. Slowly, she walked toward the stage. When she reached him, Adrian stepped down, his voice trembling. "You do not have to forgive me," he said softly, "but please, let me tell the truth this time. I love you." Maya's hands shook as she wiped her tears. "You always had a way with speeches," she whispered, "but this one feels real." "It is," he said, taking her hand. "No contracts, no conditions, just you." The applause swelled again, louder this time, as cameras captured the moment. But to Maya and Adrian, the noise faded into silence. For the first time since that rainy night in the car, they were exactly where they were meant to be together, not by mistake, but by choice. The crowd in the gallery slowly faded from Maya's awareness. She could only hear her own heartbeat and Adrian's quiet breathing beside her. The flashes of the cameras softened into a distant glitter, like stars reflected on water. He looked down at her, eyes steady, his voice low enough that only she could hear. "When I met you, you were running through the rain, and I thought you were lost, but I realize now that I was the one who needed direction. You found me when I did not even know I was looking for someone." Maya's voice trembled. "You turned my art into something beautiful for the world, Adrian. You did not have to." He shook his head. "I had to. You reminded me what purpose feels like." The applause continued around them, but neither of them moved. Finally, Maya whispered, "You said there were no contracts this time." "There are not," he replied. "Only a promise." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. The crowd hushed instantly as he opened it. Inside lay a simple ring, a single diamond set on a silver band. It was elegant but unpretentious, like her. "Maya Brooks," he said, his voice clear but thick with emotion. "Not as a CEO, not as a man trying to make things right, but as someone who has finally learned what love means, I am asking you to marry me, for real this time." Her breath caught. The world seemed to pause around them. All the pain, all the misunderstanding, and all the distance between them melted into one perfect, trembling second of truth. She smiled through her tears. "Only if you promise never to write another contract." He laughed softly, slipping the ring onto her finger. "No more contracts, only forever." The audience erupted into applause, but Maya only saw his face, the one that had once been so guarded, now open and unafraid. For the first time, the word love did not scare either of them. Weeks later, the art exhibition became a permanent installation under the Cole Foundation. It funded free art classes for children across the city, exactly as Maya had once dreamed. Every weekend, she taught there herself, her laughter filling the bright rooms. Sometimes, when she finished a class, she would walk outside to find Adrian waiting for her by the steps. He always carried 2 coffees, one for her, one for himself. One afternoon, as they sat on the bench overlooking Central Park, Maya rested her head on his shoulder. "Do you ever miss your old life?" she asked quietly. He smiled. "You mean the one where I had everything but felt nothing?" "No, I would not trade this for the world." She looked down at her sketchbook, the same one she had carried that first night. Inside was a new drawing, 2 figures walking under an umbrella, a city behind them, and a line written underneath. "Some mistakes are meant to happen." Adrian glanced at it and smiled. "That is us," he said. She nodded. "The best mistake we ever made." A breeze carried through the trees, scattering golden leaves across the path. The city hummed around them, alive and forgiving. As the camera of life pulled away from their small, perfect corner of New York, the words lingered in the air, gentle, hopeful, and true. Sometimes, love does not arrive with grand plans or perfect timing. Sometimes, it simply begins with a wrong turn, a borrowed jacket, and the courage to stay when the world tells you to walk away. And so the girl who entered the wrong car found the right heart. And the man who thought he could control everything finally learned how to love.